Okie dokie. Aloha and welcome to Many Mediums, the channeling channel where we explore the myriad of ways in which Spirit can speak to us and through us. My name is Rebecca Ra. Thank you for joining me today or tonight, whatever it might be. Apologies. Alright, so I felt compelled to do a little extra on this podcast. I was initially going to record kind of like the next part of my story, and I'm still going to do that, but I found that life has recently formed a very interesting segue for me, so I'm going to roll with it. So the events that have transpired today have caused me some pause for reflection, and I find myself looking at a trip back to the mainland very interestingly. So I think I mentioned it in the last episode, I found a van for a really, really good price, and the van had 300,000 miles on it and a transmission that was kind of iffy, so it was definitely a gamble to buy it, right? And I went and got the money for the van and was supposed to get it the next morning, and I talked to them and found out the transmission blew. So it was like, bummer on one hand, no van. But on the other hand, just saved me a big headache. So I was sitting with this and kind of thinking, what are my options? Because I was like, I could get another vehicle for around the same price range and probably be looking at the same situation. I live about an hour from where I work. The housing options aren't so great for my budget at the moment. And so I was like, kind of found myself at a crossroads, and a couple odd synchronous things happened too in tandem. Last night I was listening to a podcast, and I was listening to spiritual shit with Aaliyah Lovely. It's a really fucking awesome podcast. I highly recommend listening to it because it's amazing. But she had this lady on who's a medium, and that was a very interesting conversation. And then she actually did a reading at the end of the show for Aaliyah. And I have the name of this podcast is Many Mediums, because I believe Spirit speaks through people in just this infinite synchronous way where you can be a medium and not even know it. And like one way that can be expressed is through art, right? Art speaks to people, and it says as many things as there are people to see it or hear it. And I believe that is a way of communing with Spirit. So let's say that the universe lines you up to hear a reading or listen to a reading. Well, that reading may be for that person getting the reading between them and the psychic. There's also this other connection that happens, and you may find that there are things relevant to you, and you will pick it up through your own experience, and it'll have its own set of meaning for you. So like in this case, what came up is she said something really interesting, because the thought had been crossing my mind, and she said to her, you are going to go back to your roots, to a place you said you never go back to. There's a mosquito trying to land on me. I'm going to warn you, you do it and I will kill you. I'm not fucking around. Like, for real. We can coexist, but if you try to fucking drain my life force energy, we're going to have a problem. And I will have to protect myself. Sorry. You gotta make, like, I feel like I will let them know, if the mosquitoes approaching me, I'm like, okay, man, I want to be peaceful, but I'm not afraid to smack the shit out of you if I need to. Okay. So, and continuing with my story here, just make sure my shit's functional. That's hilarious. Like, this, continue with my story here. Let me just make sure my shit's functional. That is basically my story. It occurs to me. So, alright. So where was I? So, in this reading, she says to her, you're going to go back to your roots, and you're going to go back to a place that you swore you'd never go back to. And I'm sitting here like, wow, that feels pertinent, because similar things have been on my mind. Eagle, spirit, trust in your higher self. I shuffled these a bit, but I'm going to shuffle them some more, because that was the other thing I wanted to share. So I was pulling cards just a minute ago, and I pulled a number of cards that made me feel better about the situation and going back to Wisconsin for a while, because I have some hang-ups on it. But at the same time, the cards I pulled, I don't remember all of them, but I remember that I felt better. But then I also pulled this deck, and this card came up, Revelation. And what was interesting to me is one way I do with card pulling and stuff is I'll be thinking about a certain topic, and like something I'm ruminating on in life. And so I'll pull a card and try to gain some just insight into the topic, get some discernment. Anyway, so I feel like this here, these kind of jumped out, so I feel like they might be pertinent, so I'll share them in a minute. But anyway, I was doing that, and I was shuffling, and I was thinking about, okay, I've kind of made this decision. I'm going to go back to the mainland, and I booked a ticket. And because what had come up, so that synchronicity came up, and then it was interesting, and then I was like, I was getting the very strong feeling like, for whatever reason, I have to kind of move on, and like my path is calling me elsewhere. So I was struggling with where is elsewhere right now. Where do I want to go? At one point, I was considering moving over to Oahu earlier in March, back before the lockdown, and so that was kind of in my thoughts. I was thinking about some of the other islands, and then I had been thinking about the mainland. Me and a couple of my friends have had this weird synchronous thing with Arizona. Like, we've all had this, like, weird thing where we keep having these synchronicities pop up. I'm talking with Arizona, I've had weird experiences, and so have some of my friends. So that was one spot, and I was thinking about that. And so later today, I went to go take the cash back to the bank because I'm not buying a van anymore. And a friend I met here who has been really cool, he was nice enough to give me a ride to the bank so I could go put that in, because I don't like having cash on me and stuff. So it's like, but when I was in the bank, there was this fiery older lady in the bank, and she was cracking us all up. Like, she was pretty loud, and she was very charismatic and hilarious, and we were all giggling. And at one point I heard her say Phoenix, and I'm like, Phoenix? And she said Phoenix. I'm like, that's interesting, because I had literally 10 minutes before I heard her been talking about how me and some of my friends have noticed these synchronicity things. Because my friend I met here, he is also kind of like thinking about Phoenix at one point. Anyway, all this, it's come up for so many people in a weird way. And they say Phoenix, Arizona. Some background information. You're like, why Phoenix? I don't know. It's like, why would you want to go to the desert? What the fuck? And the reason some people speculate that it's like an energy vortex out there, like Sedona, Flagstaff, Phoenix. It's like Sedona, Arizona, and Flagstaff area is supposed to be like more like spiritual vibe. So that's kind of interesting, but it's apparently like there's like energy centers there and stuff. But it's weird to me how there's that theory about that place, and then so many people I know have had these kind of strange experiences. I was actually supposed to be on a plane to Phoenix the day my ex-husband and I kind of like officially got together and moved in together. So that's kind of crazy. And I ended up staying back because he was coming back to Wisconsin at the time. So it's like, well, so that came up, and I heard her say Phoenix, but I really couldn't hear the context. I wasn't trying to be too rude and eavesdrop. She was just loud. But then when it was my turn, I had the same teller, and I was like, what was she saying about Phoenix? And the teller was like, I think it was bad. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, maybe Phoenix is out. And I figured to myself, I was like, my same friend, one of them who's had actually the Phoenix experience, she has a saying that kind of came to my mind is, let things happen with ease and grace, right? Like if it's your path and you're kind of like walking with that, things will unfold as they do in divine timing, and you shouldn't really have to like force it, it's. And so I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna do some research here and see. Some of this is just logic too, but like what looks like it's gonna have the best option, what's gonna be the easiest, what's gonna flow the best. And so I was looking at Oahu, and I'm like, doesn't look like there are a lot of tattoo shops hiring. There's a couple places I think I could work at. There's one place I think I'd have a good shot at working there. I've worked there before, and I think it's an open door. And then I saw one place that was hiring. I don't know if they still are. And then there's some really good shops in Oahu. I'm like, but it's very kind of dense population city. Might kind of go crazy, like. I won't go off on a huge tangent about that, but excuse me. Suffice to say, I'm kind of weighing all my options, and nothing really had any shops hiring, and Oahu had like a B&B rental that I would have like basically a month there with not a lot of options beyond that, I'd have enough to kind of take care of a month, and then I'd be kind of stuck. So then, in tandem with this, something else that kept coming up through all this was the grandmother archetype in different ways. Like it came through in the podcast I was listening to, and I feel like there were at least one other thing. If I remember it, I will share it. And so I decided, I looked on Craigslist at the tattoo jobs there, and I noticed that a shop that I used to work at there is hiring in Wisconsin. And I'm like, and I noticed it was just posted like today. I was like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. So I was like, all right. And I decided to give my grandma a call, and she was super thrilled. So to the point where I was like, I don't want to disappoint her, I do miss her, and I'd like to see her and hang out with her. So I've decided I'm going to go back to the mainland for a bit, and that's when I kind of really made my mind up. I'm going to go back for a little while. I'm going to come back here, but I think I want to spend like at least a month to 3 months. I don't know why that feels like the right amount of time, but it does. So I'd probably come back out this way, maybe after my birthday or something. That would fit the 3 months thing. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, and what that gets into, and I mentioned this kind of segues in a weird way, is because like sometimes we have how we think we want things to go, and then how things go, and what flows, and you know, like it's kind of like that analogy of swimming upstream, making things harder on yourself. So I found that to be the case for myself in the past, where you know, I saw like red flag after red flag, things became obvious. So now when I see shit like this, I kind of take it as I try to pay attention and heed the signs more. For example, like I saw like that run experience happen to me before I moved back in with my ex. You know, I was at a red light and saw a license plate that said Run on it as I'm going to look for a house for us, and I'm listening to an album that's titled Run, and I'm listening to the song that's called Run behind this car with a license plate that says Runner, R-U-N-R. And I'm like, that's not the universe saying something, just I don't know what is, and I fucking ignored it. So now I'm here and I'm like, okay, this is pretty interesting. I should probably heed it. So on that note, I got home and I'm like, I've made this decision. Now what I do in the interim, because I feel a little bit frazzled with this. So I was pulling some cards and thinking about that, and then, you know, revelation came out when I was thinking about filming a podcast, because the thought crossed my mind a little earlier, and I was like, maybe I could do that. And then I'm kind of like shuffling them, and another card pops out as I'm shuffling it, and it's the same fucking card. So I was like, I think I need to film this, or I need to do a podcast. But then I was like, I should probably like maybe pull some cards as I'm doing this, and like maybe share this part, and I can put this little part on YouTube. I don't know if that I'm gonna video film the whole thing, but I will for this little reading thing, just so you can see the cards. But these were the ones that jumped out when I was shuffling earlier. So we got Moose, you know what, Moose Authority, you know what's best for you. Dove, Serenity, slow down, pause, and breathe. Frog, purification, clear out the clutter. I'm gonna have to do that if I'm moving. Otter, surrender, let go of control. Alright then. Badger, perseverance, dig in and see it through completion. Also, Wisconsin is the Badger state. Fuck. And Beaver, productiveness. Go ahead and just do it. So there you go. In tandem with this was great fucking segue. Fuck it. I have mentioned in the past, and I put a couple little videos on my Instagram, kind of like half-ass, sort of being. I kind of like doing this stuff, you guys, but I haven't really done much beyond that, because I'm a little bit like, I don't want people to think I'm just this fucking woo-woo, but I guess I kind of am. And maybe it's time for us woo-woos to collectively shift what that fucking means. Horse, freedom. You always have a choice. Stop trying to make something happen. Retreat. Okay, we won't try to shift. We're just gonna do our thing and be like happy little woo-woos and fucking shift ourselves and then shift the goddamn hologram. Sorry. Squirrel, preparation. Get ready for big changes. Feel like I had a thought, but I lost it, but it'll probably come back to me. I have a thought that I should drink more water, but Fox. Adaptability. Adapt to the changes that are happening. I did a reading. I guess I can just stop now and go into the podcast. Excuse me. Because I think I need to drink some water and adapt. Because my throat feels a little... And I'm going to be talking for a bit here, so... Oh, I remember what I was going to say now. Sorry. I was going to say that I want to dive into this kind of spiritual stuff more, especially like oracle cards and this medium sense of reading these cues from the universe and sharing that and also sharing it through art and kind of like music, of all this stuff. And it's all, I think, and it sounds cliche, and it's all different expressions of the same thing, because it's like creation expressing itself through all of us, you know, like, but it's so fucking mind-boggling how that is everything. Squirrel, big changes. We already pulled these. Do one more. Owl, omens, pay attention to the signs. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna make some tea. Maybe if I feel so inclined, I'll share my story and pull a few more cards as I go. Sometimes that's kind of a fun thing to do too. Is as you're sharing story or talking about something, you can be shuffling and then randomly pull cards, kind of give you like a interesting insight. That's kind of a fun one to do. Sometimes it's just a neat way to really see the universe's presence in that intelligence in the universe, in that weird synchronous way where it speaks you. And it also is a good way, many times, to see the universe's sense of humor. And because the universe will call you the fuck out. But I think the lesson I'm learning also is that it'll call you out, because the universe sees your highest potential, because you are it and it is you. So on that level somewhere you exist, and so it's gonna kind of nudge you so that you're on that timeline sometimes, and humor is a great way to relay truth that might be hard. You know, so it kind of works. But comedy is tragedy timed well, they say. Cougar, confidence. Be bold and take charge. Alright. One more. You have all the resources you need. I'm gonna get my water. And then maybe I'll continue this. I'll pause it for a minute.